As you refine a model in Sculptris, it is sometimes helpful to be able to flatten areas. Although you can do this manually using inflate or draw tools in invert mode, there is actually a tool especially made for flattening. Not surprisingly, it's called the Flatten tool, and it makes our lives so much easier. The Flatten tool works by creating an imaginary plane as you move your cursor across your model's surface. Wherever you start a brushstroke determines the height of that plane. As you move the brush, it will push digital clay towards the chosen plane, flattening the surface and evening out the height. This tool is more or less the equivalent of scraping a knife or a rib across the surface of clay in real life. Let's try it. Select the Flatten tool by choosing the icon on the tool palette that resembles a blob of clay with a flattened top. You can also use the keyboard shortcut, which is F. Right now, one of the issues with our dolphins is the fins. Dolphin fins are relatively flat, but the way we pulled out our clay, they still have a thicker part in the middle. I'm going to choose a brush size that is just a little wider than the width of this fin and a strength somewhere in the middle. I will leave my lazy mode off, though I could enable it if I wanted to help smooth my movement. It works the same way as it does for inflate and draw. Once I've selected a brush, I choose a spot on the fin that is the height I want my plane to be. In this case, I want the whole fin to be thin like it is at the top, so I'm going to put my cursor there and click. As I move my brush around the surface of the fin, the tool will flatten everything to match that initial height. I do have to be careful to keep my brush on the side that I actually want flat. If my cursor kind of creeps around to the front or back, the flatten tool will try to turn those into the same plane and make kind of a mess. Now, there is an option to help avoid this possibility. With the Flatten tool selected, if you go to the top menu in the Sculptris screen, you'll see there's a little toggle that says Lock Plane. Lock Plane fixes the height and angle of the plane to the height and angle at the spot where you first clicked. So it allows you to build up a large surface that's completely flat. The only thing is it can look a little unnatural, especially for something organic like a dolphin fin, so use it sparingly. There is another toggle for the Flatten tool called Angle Falloff. Angle Falloff is intended to prevent the Flatten tool from distorting the surface on the other side of a corner. So for example, if you're doing a building where two walls come together and you're flattening the surface on the left, Angle Fallout supposedly prevents the tool from wrapping around and trying to pull the other surface to the same plane. In addition to flattening surfaces, the Flatten tool is actually great for exaggerating details. So if you select invert, or if you just want to hold down Alt or Option while you use the tool, the flatten brush will kind of plump things up instead of flattening them. This can be a great way to make something look a little more fleshy or exaggerated. For example, if I invert the flatten tool and brush it over the eye, you can see everything plumps out a little bit and looks more defined. Same thing if I select a larger brush and run it over the muscle ridges on the dolphin's torso and tail. Gives it some oomph. Of course, you can use the inflate or draw tools to do the same thing, but sometimes flatten does what you want with a little less effort. Okay, go ahead and save your progress. We will continue working on this model in the next video.